Hi, and welcome to What's for Dinner, YouTube's only first-person cooking show, probably. Tonight we're going to be cooking roasted chicken with curried vegetable stew and basmati rice, using all the ingredients you're seeing on the screen right now. First, we're going to start out by making kind of a flavorful base for both the curry and the marinade for the chicken. We're going to start by getting some fresh ginger. We'll go ahead and just roughly peel it. It's not necessary to remove all the skin, just get all the kind of hard, crusty bits from the edges. We're going to cut it up into pieces and then put it in the food processor, so the skin will just get chopped up right along with everything else. Next, we're going to go ahead and add some fresh garlic. This is, if I had to wager a guess, about 1.5 cups of fresh garlic. You can add more if you like, you can use a little less if you like. Next, we're going to add some heat. This is a habanero pepper, and we like spice in my house. If you don't like spice, feel free to use something a little less powerful. I'm going to go ahead and wash my hands up because even that little pepper can leave some residue on your fingers. Next, we'll chop up some cilantro stems. This again is the stems, not the leaves. We'll use the leaves later as a garnish. Roughly slice the stems up and we'll add them into the food processor with everything else. Next, we need some lime juice. It does help to get the juice out of the limes if you just briefly microwave them for maybe 20 to 25 seconds. After that, you'll give them a quick little roll on the cutting board, just apply some downward pressure just to loosen the juice up even more, and then squeeze them right into the food processor. We're going to go ahead and add a couple big pinches of salt for some seasoning. We're going to add in some spices. This is smoked paprika, about 2 tablespoons. Then we're also going to add some turmeric. This is about 1 tablespoon of turmeric, just for some color. Next, we'll add about 1 tablespoon of cooking oil. This is a grapeseed olive oil blend that I like to use pretty often. And then we'll start pulsing it down. Maybe 10 to 15 pulses total. You may have to kind of scrape down the sides as I had to here. You're not looking for a smooth paste, just a pretty fine homogeneous dice. So once we have about 1 cup of that saved off to the side, we'll go ahead and get the blade back in the food processor, and then we're going to go ahead and turn this into the marinade that we're going to use for our drumsticks. We'll go ahead and get the blade put back in, and then we're going to add in about 3 tablespoons of Greek yogurt. The yogurt will provide a little bit of acidity and just a little bit more liquid so that it's more of a marinade and less of a paste. So we'll go ahead and spoon this into the bag with the chicken. We'll seal it up, leaving a bit more air in there so that it's still a little pillowy, and then just kind of gently toss the chicken back and forth for about 5 minutes. This should evenly distribute the marinade. Once the marinade is on all the pieces of chicken, go ahead and pop up in a corner and then squeeze out all the air to help increase the marination time. We'll go ahead and get cleaned up really quickly and then move on to the next step. So the next step is to go ahead and get our rice ready. Basmati rice does require a little bit of prep before using. Mainly, it needs to be rinsed. I've always been told you should rinse basmati rice 7 times in fresh water before using it. So what I actually did was I went ahead and saved a little bit of the water from each rinsing so we can take a look at what actually happens during that process. After you rinse it 7 times, you do also want to let it soak for about 30 minutes to an hour before you cook it. This is very important. So here you can see from start to finish the water as it came off the rice during the rinsing process. You can see on the left is the first batch and the right is the last batch. You can see the first batch was much more cloudy and much more yellow. With the rice taken care of, we can go ahead and turn our attention to the vegetables. I'm going to go ahead and thickly slice about 2 medium onions. And again, this isn't a julienne. You want them to have some substance to them. Next, we'll go ahead and get our carrots sorted out. Go ahead and cut off the ends and the tips. These are the parts that tend to go bad a little faster than everything else. And you'll also notice I don't peel my carrots. I think this is important. There's a lot of flavor to be had when the skin is on. Go ahead and coin cut those about 1/2 inch thick. Next up, we're going to focus on the green peppers. Go ahead and cut off the feet, cut off all 4 sides, and then just kind of roughly dice them in about 1-inch pieces. So right now I'm just cleaning up the cutting board and I want to get this cilantro put away. Now you can just put it right in the fridge, but if you want to really give it a longer shelf life, if you wrap it in a cold, wet paper towel like this, you'll notice the fresh herbs of all kinds will last so much longer in the fridge. And finally, we're going to turn our attention to the cauliflower. We're going to cut this into quarters and then cut the core out by slicing kind of on the bias, and then just break it up with your hands. I don't like cutting up cauliflower too much because it just makes, there's already cauliflower crumbs everywhere, and if you start slicing through it, it's going to make so much more crumbs. By sticking the knife in the blade and giving it a slight twist and breaking it into pieces is the best way that I've found. We are going to blanch that cauliflower as well. So we're going to get a pot, get a little salt in the water, get it on the fire, and then once it gets to a rolling boil, we'll put it in. Next, you'll see I've got this big round copper pan. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this in foil and get it ready to have the chicken put on it for roasting. With the pan ready and the water at a boil, we can go ahead and get the cauliflower cooked off. So we'll just drop it right in and then let it cook for about 2 or 3 minutes, not very long. We're not trying to cook it all the way through, we're just trying to soften it. So you can see here the cauliflower is starting to turn just vaguely yellow. It's easy to pull apart with your fingers, and if you try a piece, it's pretty much done. We're going to go ahead and drain it, and then we'll give it a bath in some cold water and then drain it again. Make sure you leave it drained, don't leave it in water or it will waterlog. Next, we're going to take that foil covered pan, we're going to grease it up with a little oil and then get our curry started. So I'm going to add in a little oil into the pan. It seems like a lot, but trust me, it's not. So about 3 tablespoons of cooking oil, about 1 tablespoon of sesame oil, and then we're going to go ahead and put on our whole spices. Let those fry for about 30 seconds. Do be careful because they will burn fairly easily, especially if your heat is too high. After 30 seconds has passed, we're going to go ahead and add in some more flavor. This is just a nice mild curry powder. I ordered this off Amazon. The brand is really good. I do like it a lot. I do endorse it, and I'm not being paid to say that. So if you're looking for a good curry powder, I highly recommend it. We'll go ahead and add in our garlic paste that we made up earlier. Go ahead and fry that up a little bit. Again, be careful because this will burn, and these whole spices can still burn while there's not much in the pot. And you can see all that oil turned out to not be very much oil once you start to get everything in there. So after about maybe a minute of frying the garlic and then spices together, we'll go ahead and start getting our veggies in the pot. We'll start off with the onions. Give them a stir around, keep stirring occasionally through the cooking process. These will cook on their own for maybe 5 to 6 minutes, just until they start to turn translucent. So while the onions cook away, we're going to go ahead and get our chicken on the pan and ready to go in the oven. The oven is set to 400 degrees Fahrenheit, and we will then move it in there and cook it for maybe an hour and a half. I like the chicken to be pretty crispy on the outside to kind of go with the sauce. If you don't like it as crispy, you can definitely pull it out earlier if you like. So with the onions start to get a little soft, a little translucent, we'll hit it with some salt. And then next up, we'll go ahead and get our carrots in the pot. Make sure you share the carrots with your friend. Keep mixing that through. We're going to cook this for about another 5 minutes before moving on to the next step. We're going to go ahead and add in our diced tomatoes and our coconut milk. Make sure you shake up the coconut milk really well. It does have a tendency to separate. So just dump everything into the pot and get the tomatoes in. We're going to get the coconut milk in. And then we're actually going to add a little bit of water. I want to thin this down a bit so that the pot doesn't dry out before everything is cooked all the way through. So this is chicken base. You can use vegetable base if you like. This is a good way to, it adds salt to the dish, but it also adds a little bit of subtle flavor as well. This same company makes a really nice roasted garlic base. They make vegetable bases, beef base. I highly recommend you keep some of this stuff around. It's very good if you're making any kind of stew. So with everything in the pot, all the main ingredients, we're going to go ahead and get this on the back burner, but not before adding our last and final secret ingredient. Now, craisins may seem like a bit of an odd choice to add to something like a curry, but I find they actually play really well with all the flavors involved. They provide a little bit of sweetness, and they also bring a little of acidity and a little sourness to the dish. It all plays together really, really well. So go ahead and get that on the back burner. Here you can see the chicken's been cooking for about 1 hour. It's starting to get brown and crispy and looking really nice. Curry's been simmering for about an hour. It is a little thin though. So what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to cook the rest of the dish with the lid off. This will allow some of the water to evaporate and allow it to thicken up a bit. I'm going to go ahead and taste it to kind of get a general idea of where the seasoning is at. I would recommend don't over season at this point because it's only going to get saltier. So we'll go ahead and turn our attention to the rice. Now, it's hard to explain to people how to cook basmati rice properly, and I actually don't do a very good job of it in this video. Here you can see I'm measuring out the rice and water. So the best way that I've found is if you have an inch of rice in the pot, you want to have an inch of water on top of the rice. This isn't a perfect method, but it is a very good starting point. So we're going to go ahead and get the rice and water over high heat. Here I'm just checking the chicken. You can see it's tender, it's cooked, but I want it to be more tender and a little bit more crispy. So I'm going to let it go for about another 15 minutes. We're going to go ahead and add in the peppers while the chicken continues to roast. Here, the rice has been boiling for about maybe 10 minutes, and you can start to see it's getting very thick. It's kind of getting burbly and bubbly. So we're going to go ahead and add in about half a stick of butter and then just put it on the back without heat underneath it. We're going to let it coast to cook and finish. So you can see the peppers are starting to turn a little bit of dark green. We'll go ahead and add in the cauliflower, get that stirred through. You can see how the cauliflower really thickens up the curry as well. So here I noticed the rice is a little overcooked. I should have added the butter and pulled it off the heat earlier, so I'm going to go ahead and turn it out into a large bowl. What this will allow me to do is not only fluff the rice, but also you can see all the steam coming out. Normally this steam would stay inside the pot for the most part and continue to overcook the rice. So by turning it out into a bowl and kind of mixing it and fluffing it, it does help prevent the overcooking process. So now we're going to go ahead and get these chicken legs out. They're nice and crispy, nice and golden brown. A little actually beyond golden brown, but that's how I like it. We'll go ahead and start building our plate. We're going to get a little rice on there, get a few chicken legs put on there. We're then going to ladle over a few spoonfuls of the wonderful vegetable curry that's got all the flavor in it. The chicken really would have been better had I marinated it overnight, but this was a kind of a quick dinner recipe, so I did just marinate it for an hour. If you have time to marinate it overnight, I highly recommend it. It'll taste much, much better. And then we're going to go ahead and finish off this plate with a little bit of that fresh cilantro that I parked in the fridge. As always, I thank you for watching, and please like, favorite, share, and subscribe for more content every week.